digitaljamsessions.com.
Welcome to this digital jam session. This week, Tanya is live from London Comic Con, October 2016. She talks technology with Steve McNeil on gaming with live audiences, meets up with the girls from Rooster Teeth, Ruby and Red vs. Blue fame, Lindsay Jones and Barbara Dunkelman, as well as a quick chat with Emily Rose from Uncharted and TV's Haven. Enjoy the show.
I will ask you to introduce yourself for the record.
Okay. Hello, I am Steve McNeil.
And what do you do, Steve?
I am an idiot that plays computer games, and somehow I've managed to make that the way that I pay for my house and food.
Which is something that everybody would love to be able to figure out how to do.
It's insane. I cannot believe I got to be the person that gets to do that.
But tell us which shows.
I do a TV show. I created and I'm a team captain on the TV show Dara O'Brien's Go 8-Bit, where we get comedians to play computer games. And I also have a live show called Wi-Fi Wars, where I got a genius called Rob Sedgebeer, who invented a way that an entire, 400 people, like a whole theatre, can all log into a Wi-Fi network we set up and play video games against each other.
Okay, which is really interesting. And the reason that we wanted to have a chat with you was to talk about what you think the future is going to be for kind of social gaming against other people, but also in terms of immersive technologies. So, for example, being able to play with these 400 people, all in different locations, in virtual locations, being able to then put them into a third location where they're all sharing space together in the same time, in real time. Is that something that you've contemplated with your Wi-Fi show?
Yeah. So for anybody listening who hasn't come across the show before, so Wi-Fi Wars, originally it started out when Go 8-Bit was a live show with me and my comedy partner Sam Pamphilon. Rob was the boyfriend of a girl who was a fan of ours who came to our comedy nights, and he saw the first live Go 8-Bit show and said, I've invented this thing I think you might like. And what he'd done was he worked out a way that he set up his computer and a couple of routers in a room. People could log into the Wi-Fi network he set up on it, and then by beaming basically a complicated web page into their phones, he could give them buttons that controlled games on the big screen. Brought it to us, it worked with about 8 people, and then he started to develop it at our monthly gig, and he got it to the point where it worked with about 100, and then he broke a world record this year, Guinness World Record, and we now have a residency at the Royal Institution in London, where every 3 months he presents the latest developments in this emerging technology he's created. And we've got to the point now where that works with about 300-400 people. We're doing it for 3,000 people next year. An event I'm not allowed to tell you what it is, but it's going to be really exciting. And that presents some technical problems for us, because at the moment what happens is, how technical do you want me to get on it?
As technical as you like.
Fine. So at the moment, the way that it works is that we've got the system running on his laptop. We've got a hub plugged into that, and then we spider a load of routers into that. So depending on how many people we've got playing, we scale that up. But it runs off a single machine. Our next technical challenge, which he started to work on and has worked, we just need to afford the kit to scale it, is distribute computing as well. So at the moment it all goes through a central computer. What we now need is a number of computers, each with their own hub and set of access points that communicate to a central system.
So when you say that you have all of these people spidered into the network as such, are you talking about, because you talked about a web page with just buttons, so are you talking about very much kind of like and or not kind of questions and answers that people can engage with, or are you talking about proper? No. So
Pong, the way Pong works, at its most basic, is you get 2 buttons, an up and a down one, and it's in 2 teams. And as the ball moves towards your team's paddle, if the majority of your team press the correct direction, the paddle moves there and hits the ball. So that's its most basic. Then there's things like whack-a-mole, where moles pop up and you get a grid that corresponds to the holes, and you can hit the moles, and we aggregate that. But we're now at the point where we beam full games into people's phones as well. So at its most advanced, that's 2 things. It's a 3D first-person shooter where we can multiplayer deathmatch, where 400 people all play without installing anything on their devices. Play that, or a VR game. So if you've got a Google Cardboard, we can put everybody in a virtual reality city and fly through that. So that's sort of the 2 extremes of what it is.
So is this one of those things that you're looking to ultimately end up doing tournaments like the ESL and people like that? Or?
Not in that. I mean, the difference between what we're doing and something like ESL is doing is that ESL is very much at an elite level. What we're doing is organising an experience where grandparents can begrudgingly bring their children along, or grandchildren along to a show, and then find out they enjoy it because they own a smartphone too and are playing. So it's about accessibility and about broadening people's experiences. But the future of it is scale, in terms of looking at arenas and doing it on a sort of scale, but as a theatrical experience rather than a pro gaming thing. But what I haven't done anything, I just do the talking. What Rob's done a lot of in the past year is adapting the original technology, which was built for live, to work differently in terms of the way it uses web technology, so that the next thing we're going to be doing with it is doing a live Twitch stream where viewers watching the Twitch stream can play along. So we've had chat with, because we're looking at broadcast as well, so we've been having chats with, say, Google and cloud services and all those sorts of guys about scaling that up. So we're talking about, if we did a TV broadcast that was built on that technology, having 4 or 5 million people watching at home, along with a live broadcast playing on video games.
Kind of something that would work with reality TV, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. But truly giving everybody an act, rather than sort of a token feel that you're involved in, like you're voting for which contestant you want to win X Factor. Actually, genuinely, you're all competing on the same level as everybody else.
But it's also more than just competing. It's also about, from the description you're giving, it's about collaboration as well, which is the fact that without participation from the audience, the thing is not going to happen. So if it's that everybody's got to press the same button in order to make the thing move, then if not everybody's taking part, then your thing's not going to move.
Exactly. And that's the curious thing about it as a live experience as well, because there is no show unless the audience fully engaged. We pick them as team captains, they choose the name for the team, they determine how many points are at stake by asking each other questions and finding out about each other. And if they don't press the buttons, nothing happens. It's entirely on them to do all the work once we get there.
So in an ideal world, in terms of the future of this type of show, this type of technology, what kind of games do you want to be associating with, or which kind of licenses and franchises would you like to have on your platform?
That's a very good question. I think, were we in a position where we were able to use licenses, I think working through classic arcade games is great. We sort of use Pong in because Pong's essentially open source at this point in terms of the number of different people who've made it. Even back in the 70s, everybody was making Pong. But at the moment, Rob creates his own adaptations of classics, so we can't afford Doom or use Doom. Rob has created a 3D first-person shooter he calls Boom, which is like Doom, but entirely independent in terms of code and assets. But I mean, if we were at the point, the show goes from Pong at the beginning to virtual reality at the end of the live show, and we do a whistle-stop tour of every type of game and the history of games through it, but our own interpretations of games. But if we were able to do that with licenses, like we use, he's got a platforming one that he uses, but if that could be Mario or Sonic rather than something independent, that would be amazing. But the actually part of the appeal of the show, I think, is that we've got our own little games and our own little quirks, so I quite enjoy it being its own thing. But then that's because I can't afford to use Sonic the Hedgehog, I guess.
All right. Well, as always, we ask to share with us your social media handle of choice so that our listeners can find out more about what you're up to.
All right. Okay.
What would that be?
My Twitter handle is @SteveMcNeil.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
All right, that was easy. Bye.
digitaljamsessions.com.
So, for the record, officially for the record, could you tell us your name and which shows you have appeared on?
Yes, I am Lindsay Jones. I am the voice of Ruby in Ruby. I am also the voice of Space Kid in Camp Camp and Kimball in Red vs. Blue.
Yes. My name is Barbara Dunkelman. I am the voice of Yang Xiaolong in Ruby, the voice of Neris in Camp Camp, the voice of Orf in X-Ray and Vev, and the voice of Jensen in Red vs. Blue.
Yeah, silly me, I forgot Hilda next
I
to
was going to say, you missed one.
I was thinking of myself as a writer. Whoops.
And we're here live from Comic Con, October 2016. But I wanted to ask you ladies a little bit about what you're doing, and more specifically, because we're a technology show and we talk about technology.
Oh, cool.
I wanted to talk to you about the technology that you've been using and what you've been seeing happen lately in this industry, because there's been a lot of changes and there's a lot moving forwards with people getting into VR and 360, and therefore binaural sound is now a thing. And I'm wondering whether or not you have seen any of that kind of trickle into what you've been doing and the kind of requests that you're getting for the work that you do and how you actually do that work. So
Well, we actually just did an interview with a 360 camera. So that was the first time we've ever done something like that. So to see that technology come into play and stuff we usually do just either with voice recording or one still camera is cool to see that progression.
Another awesome interview that we had was in RTX Australia, which we just had this first time this year. We did an interview as Yang and Ruby, and what happened is we had a facial recognition software backstage with us. We were sitting there, and it would read our movements, and then we could literally interact with the audience in real time, which we had never gotten to do before as our characters.
We were behind the stage with that, and then it was projected on a screen
in real time.
Yes.
And we were able. There was also a camera on them, so we could see them react and also like talk to them and see what they're doing. Like, hey, you in the front with the red dress.
This is not pre-recorded.
Yeah, exactly. So that was really fun.
So of all the different types of technology that you're seeing emerge, what excites you the most in terms of what do you think is going to have a real impact in the way that you do your day-to-day job?
For me, I work in a department at Rooster Teeth called Achievement Hunter, which focuses on video gameplay. And we have already started going into VR, both PlayStation VR, Oculus, the Vive, all of the above. And I think that absolutely is the future of gameplay. Once you immerse yourself into the VR headset and kind of explore the world that you're in, it feels like you have left Earth.
Yeah, for my job, I don't really use much technology except a computer with Twitter and Facebook and other social
There you
media.
go.
I don't know, just like different platforms that are coming out, different apps people use to communicate. You know, Facebook is obviously not the only thing anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just things are changing and people having to adapt to whatever is new. You know, Snapchat, I still don't understand, but it's very popular.
Yes. We say we feel like old people when you try and work Snapchat.
Yeah. Where's the
You
camera?
So, as an example, here in London at Ravensbourne College, we have a hollow port, which is a device you can walk inside, they 3D scan you, and then they can insert you into a virtual world or a virtual environment. And when we move forward with these types of technologies, we're getting to a stage where, ideally, as actresses, somebody could, hire you for a job, scan you, insert you into an environment, and then create a performance that you didn't actually deliver. What's your sentiment on that as we move forward into that kind of era of, you don't even need to turn up for work?
Yeah, that's crazy. I feel like that changes things so much because there's, especially when you're an actor on set, you vibe off a lot of different people, you play off different people, and to have to do that by yourself or just to not get that interaction is probably very different. I don't know how I feel about that.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm kind of so.
I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword. It's exciting to see this progress and to have this new venue of performance that had never been explored before. And it's only, you can only imagine what you can do with it moving forward and going into different genres, not just performance-wise. Maybe, I don't know, branching out into different things, maybe like medical fields. I know that's been explored before too. At the same time, though, performance-wise, I think you do lose a bit of that humanity that Barbara was speaking about, the camaraderie that you have with your coworkers or your casts or working off of other people. Right now for Ruby, we don't get the opportunity to play off of other actors, but we're moving toward that, and that's something that you can usually, for lack of a better term, you can kind of like feel that when you feel performances, and you know that these people are playing off of each other and that they have this relationship that's behind the scenes that you don't get to see.
Yeah. And do you feel that perhaps technology could facilitate that in terms of people working from different locations?
Potentially, yeah.
Being able to have that virtual environment, everybody in the same place, but at
That'd be
distance.
fantastic. I would love that. Are you kidding me? If we had all the different voice actors here, like I could actually talk to Crow while he's in LA.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
Right now we have people Skype in for different performances, and we've directed them before, like for X-Ray and Bab. I would Skype some of our actors and try and direct them. But yes, to be physically present with them would be wonderful.
Yeah. So how do you feel about that, the idea of having a younger version of you recorded, so that when you're, a few years down the road and you decide, hey, you know what, I want to do performance, but I want them to map my younger self onto
Cry
me.
about how old you are.
Exactly.
Is this something that you are behind, the idea of capturing identity and being able to reproduce, a younger version of yourself or a modified version of yourself?
I think that's a really cool concept. Also, it helps, live on for essentially forever. Being able to capture that and use it, that's really cool. It'd probably make me really depressed when I'm older to see that.
Like I say, makeup can only do so much too. I mean, the first thing that came to mind is so cheesy is like the end of the Harry Potter series when they're supposed to come back as adults, and you're like, okay, clearly that's Daniel Radcliffe being very made up. So maybe something like that would be interesting to see. Even going in the reverse, I don't know if you can scan like different versions of yourself or older versions and try and play around with it a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think also, again, branching out of like acting, I think it'd be interesting to try and use that for historical figures that maybe people had never had a chance to meet before. We try and recreate them and say, okay, what would it be like to interact with Joan of Arc? What would it be like to interact with Abraham Lincoln? Okay, now we get a chance to kind of replicate that.
Okay. And from a technology perspective, what would be the piece of technology that is most important in your life?
Barb's phone.
Sorry, we just have an issue with our booth right now.
I'm saying Barb's phone is definitely the most important part of technology for her.
Yeah, absolutely, my phone. My job solely relies on my ability to be connected to the internet, and so the fact that I could do that on this tiny little square that I could take wherever I want and essentially connect from wherever I am is wildly important.
Okay.
Yeah, we have many people say like, oh, stop playing with your phone. And we're like, no, we're working like 24/7. We are checking everything and making sure fans' needs are met, or our administration needs are met. And especially with Ruby, we like to see what the fans are creating. So to be able to interact with them on another level too, and kind of play a part of the fan base itself is great.
Have that closeness.
Exactly. Yeah, it feels like we're part of the family, I guess.
Okay. So on that basis, for our listeners, would you care to share with us your social media handle of choice so they can find out a bit more about what you're up to?
Sure. I am at B Dunkelman. That's BDUNKELMAN on pretty much every social media platform.
Awesome.
And I am Lindsay Jones on Twitter.
Yeah. You got it.
Right?
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for having us.
digitaljamsessions.com. Bearing in mind you just talked about the flip phone and it's your first flip phone.
Yes. Oh, right.
I just want to get into for a minute the future of your industry as actors. And you've probably heard about things like VR and 360 filmmaking and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm curious from your perspective how you see this, because we're going to get to a stage soon where somebody's going to just say, you know what, I'm going to scan you and you just sit at home and we've got this thing and we'll green screen you into another environment somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
You sit at home with the kids and we'll record you.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I'm curious what your take is on that in terms of will that change your performance approach or...
My personal take on it, because I feel like I've sort of had a inkling of that all in my brain from working on Uncharted for so long. I'm like, y'all, I can do this till I'm 80. You've got me. Like, the amount of times my body has been like not only like doing motion capture, but the amount of times they've stuck me in a ball with like a bazillion lights and asked me to do every reaction on my face. I'm like, my whole person is in a computer somewhere in like 3 times over. You have like all different kinds of incarnations. My brother's, it's funny you mentioned this, my brother's actually working with a 360 cam up in Seattle, and he's been on a lot of like the front end of doing that technology and doing advertising for them and everything. So I feel like I hear about it a lot from him. In terms of the whole, he was telling me about the whole virtual reality stuff, about being in one place and it appearing in another and all of that. I think I could be totally wrong. I understand. I could watch this back and be like totally wrong.
I don't think.
But I yeah. Well, thank you. That's why we work together so well. But I feel like it's going to be a genre because, I feel like we've seen this happen with film. We were so lucky and blessed to work with film for like 4 years, and everybody's making the push to digital, and I understood the benefits of it. We all did, but we also understood the romanticism and the beauty of a film grain and what that brings to a piece and how essential it was, I think, to Haven. I remember watching, you can see if you look and watch 4 seasons and then you watch 5, there are very distinct differences because of how it was shot. Like you can see it, like if you really want to look for it, you can see it. So I sort of feel like it's a genre. I feel like you're seeing this like with any technological thing, text messaging, email, Vine's disappearing now because we have, Twitter and Instagram, we have Snapchat all going to stories. Like we don't need a network to do anything. We can broadcast ourselves. However, I still think you see society sort of reacting to that. And while they really like to be in a reality of everybody's life and to see me with no makeup on or whatever it is, they also really like that heightened reality. And so I feel like there's going to be a swing. I feel like we're seeing it with film right now. Like now we have film purists that are like, no, I'm just a film purist. And it's like, well, that's been created because everybody's been hardcore this. So I feel like we will stretch into that and we will see that. Whether or not we're going to become all of that, I don't think so. I still feel like it's going to become a new genre, but I could be totally wrong.
Okay.
Because I think people liked Uncharted 4, but I feel like they also would like to see a real movie of it, So, yeah.
digitaljamsessions.com